You're listening to Stress Test, Dialogue Under Pressure, a series from iPub Cloud International. In this episode, host Jennifer Wyman continues her conversation with John K. Roth, joined by Sandy Mayer, director of iPub, and Carol Rittner, co-editor of Stress Test, The Israel-Hamas War and Christian-Jewish Relations. What follows is a more open, unstructured exchange, an honest dialogue about faith, ethics, and the moral tensions shaping today's world.
It's going to be inflammatory for an outsider to speak of Gaza as the Palestinian Holocaust. Palestinians are more likely to say that the Nakba is continuing, that it has never stopped since 1947. That's going to be more their language, I think.
Don't you think it's uh, uh, not minimizing the Jewish identity as framed by the Holocaust, but that's I don't know, in my mind, a Jewish owned word. Their rights to that word is strictly for the Jewish Holocaust.
There was even debate right after October 7th. I tracked some of this about disagreements within the Jewish community about whether the Hamas attack should be compared and likened to the Holocaust, um, which fits a little bit with Jennifer's comment. Netanyahu did this right away. He immediately jumped on the notion, oh, this is the worst thing that's happened since the Holocaust, which is already to kind of, link it to the Holocaust. But other people in the Jewish community early on were saying, wait a second, back off. This isn't the Holocaust. This is something we don't want to go there. That because and this is another issue here. There's debate within the community of Holocaust educators about how to think about this conflict, and the concern has been in some quarters that you have to be very careful about not weaponizing the Holocaust to legitimate Israeli policies. But it would be on the other side, that is, by likening what's happening to the Palestinians to the Holocaust, that invites then an argument. Oh, it's Jennifer's point. Who owns the Holocaust? And moreover, the Palestinians already have their word for what has happened to them.
Right. The Nakba. I meant to ask this question, but I don't even know if it really fits. I've kind of thought as Israel's response, which was so utterly devastating to, I mean, that hypervigilance, that overreaction, those kinds of things are indicative of somebody with PTSD. And Israel can kind of be thought of as a country that is still reeling from the PTSD of the Holocaust. Do you agree with that?
I I agree with that. I think that
Yeah.
it's not just the survivors themselves who are dying off day by day, and there are very few of them left in Israel or really around the world, but their second and third generation descendants. It's like there's an intergenerational drama that has been passed down. I mean, I do agree that the response of the state of Israel, the IDF, to October 7th um, is not proportional. It's way beyond proportional. I mean, it brings up issues about just war and whether such a thing even exists. But I want to just say this, to go back to the question of feelings. If I were a Jew living in Israel and my grandparents or my parents survived the Holocaust, and this awful invasion from Gaza happened, and now I know my comment's very unnuanced here, but I think I would have the same reaction. It's like, they kicked me, I am gonna kick them and punch them and take revenge. I mean, I think that the response of the state of Israel to Gaza is the reaction not just to Gaza, to the Hamas, but a reaction to terrorist attacks, both physical attacks, the anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic views and attitudes of many people, not just Hamas, but I'm speaking in Europe and North America, around the world.
Knowing you as I do, you would not be among the Israelis, calling for more violence and greater aggression in Palestine. You would be among the many, many hundreds of thousands of Israelis who are protesting against.
Yes, that are protesting it. Yep.
Can we just talk about feeling again? Because, Carol, you expressed thoughtfully that feeling that didn't have anything to do with it. Yet when you were sympathetic or empathic and you said, geez, if I was in this situation, if I were Jewish, if I was, et cetera. And I absolutely concur with that those strong feelings that inform our behavior, and they even inform the direction of our thoughts to justify our behavior. I'm generally a generous person. I'll lend people money, I'll give people money, et cetera. But when I got very angry recently at someone for what amounted to $13, I acted, in my view, I felt a little irrational. I felt like I wanted revenge. I felt like and I remember looking back on it and thinking my amygdala flipped, and I began to govern my thoughts and my behavior based on that anger and that rage. And I think clearly that's what many Israelis have done. And then they wised up because they saw the result. Dialogically, going back to what John was saying, he said it's a lot of listening, it's a lot of questioning, it's a lot of sharing. You have to be ready for that and gauge yourself as prepared to be in a dialogue. And I remember a wise woman saying to me, when your person you're talking to is acting like a dog in a corner, baring their teeth at you viscerally, you know that you got to retreat and you have to come back another day.
I think you make a really important point about dialogue, and that is that I have to prepare myself to be in a dialogical mode, and I have to have partners who are also the baring the teeth. You're not going to have a dialogue with the bared teeth person. You have to have somebody who is not like-minded, but who's willing to engage in what dialogue requires. That's why dialogue isn't the solution. It's part of a process.
I'll tell you what I'm still not clear on, even though I know, John, you said the purpose of dialogue is, but it's like, what comes after the talk? What comes after the sharing of positions? How do we take that step from, this is great, I have been, I feel, I am respectful of the other is respectful of me. How do you get to the next step?
After we finish our conversation here today, I will have lunch. And then I will come to my writing desk and I'll work on your essay, Carol, for the next project. The person I will be when I do that will be the person who has just experienced the dialogue. So I don't know how it will affect me, but I'm pretty sure it will in some way. I mean, if only when I'm reading your essay and editing it, I will say, hey, I had conversation with Carol this morning. She's my friend. When I edit her essay, I will be mindful of that. So this is kind of indirect, and it isn't like earth changing. But I think here's what I would say. I think, and we said this in our book, in stress tests, we said it, that one of the main functions of the dialogue is it changes the people who participate in it. But what that means going forward is not known in advance.
Absolutely. Len Swidler would absolutely echo what you're saying. It is a transformative experience, 100%. And I want to direct everybody on the call to two organizations. One is called Braver Angels, and they have a protocol for dialogue.
Yes, I know
Oth-
that group. Yeah.
The other is Marshall Rosenberg's training in nonviolent communication. It's unbelievable. He has passed, but his organization survives, and he uses puppets in his instruction, two different types of animals, and simulates conversation. And he'll demonstrate violent communication and how it can result in violence, and nonviolent communication. One of the things that Marshall Rosenberg emphasizes is that after you've heard your dialogic partner speaking, before you advance your idea, you first say, I understand what you said to be the following. And you restate clearly what you think that person said, because there's a risk. But if you don't do that, that you begin to respond to a perception of what they said, which then escalates the dialogue into a potentially violent area. And when you recognize that someone is upset or passionate or angry or disappointed or whatever, you also recognize that emotion, the feeling. So, Carol, to your point, this is where knowing that the feeling informs the thought and informs the behavior, and that psychologists believe that the feeling happens first and very quickly, that you can recognize in your dialogue partner the feeling. I see that you are upset by something I may have said. Can you share more about what you think I said, because I feel that I've upset you?
I think, Cindy, what you're talking about is they have whole degrees and classes and things that you can take on listening, like how to actively listen. And I think a lot of people that are coming to the table don't have those skills. They haven't been taught how to actively listen. I think if you don't even know that it exists, most people respond more to tone and volume than anything else. Why does a dog cower when you're yelling at it, even if you're yelling nice things?
I think we have to recognize feelings as part of this, and revenge feelings are real. We're human. And if somebody encroaches on our borders, whether as an individual or a country, we have every right to rise up. But what is going to govern that rise up is what we want to offer our young people.
That wraps up part 2 of Jennifer Wyman's conversation with John K. Roth, joined by Sandy Mayer and Carol Rittner. In the next episode of Stress Test, Dialogue Under Pressure, the conversation widens even further, challenging old assumptions and asking whether true dialogue can survive when every word feels like a risk. Stay tuned.